Hello, and welcome to a special edition podcast exploring the topic of the pandemic and financial management strategies. I'm Julia Mishi, Senior Business Development Specialist with CARF International. CARF was invited to contribute to Leading Age's Pandemic Playbook, and I'm pleased to be speaking with two of our financial advisory panel members, Alan Wells, President of Aventis Strategic Partners, and Brad Paulus, partner at Continuing Care Actuaries. Before we begin today's discussion, Alan and Brad, would you take a moment to introduce yourselves and tell us a little about your work with senior living communities?
Sure. This is Alan Wells, President of Aventis. We are a project development manager and develop master plans and strategic plans for senior living communities. And by that, I mean comprehensively independent living, skilled nursing, assisted living, life plan communities, all of that type. We are integrally involved with these communities in their planning and development. So we have a number of projects, predominantly in the central part of the state, or central part of the United States and East Coast, and predominantly nonprofit organizations.
Hi, this is Brad Paulus. I'm a partner with Continuing Care Actuaries, and I've been consulting with the retirement living industry for over 30 years. My firm, we specialize in consulting with retirement communities and at-home programs, and have worked at over 500 communities and programs over the last 20 years. And I'm a frequent speaker at Leading Age annual conferences.
Great. Thank you both for those introductions and for taking some time to share your insights with us today. As you know, the 2020 coronavirus pandemic has presented numerous challenges impacting businesses of all types, including senior living. So what are some key lessons learned or takeaways from the current pandemic that offer insight into what senior living providers should be focused on moving forward? And Alan, we'll start with you.
Sure. I mean, clearly, I think that everybody is big takeaway is that really needs to be, providers need to be more prepared for different problematic situations. And I would actually liken it to years ago in information technology departments that would prepare disaster recovery plans for when there were system failures and they could recover losses in their systems and so forth. So it's interesting to me that now we've had to have this situation occur, realizing that, gee, we really need to have solutions for different kind of failures and difficulties and being prepared for them. So really needing to have much more comprehensive plans and solutions ready to enact.
And from my perspective, I think our industry has done a phenomenal job at keeping people safe. And we don't want to lose perspective on that in terms of the speed they reacted, and really through the early stages of the pandemic, they did a phenomenal job. I am concerned about the progression of dementia that's occurred, either for individuals who had early onset of dementia or individuals that were going to develop it in the next 2 to 3 years. I think you're starting to see signs now. And what occurred is the isolation that the industry used to keep individuals safe has really had a detrimental effect on those individuals. And in terms of planning for the next event, whatever that event looks like, we need to do a better job in terms of activities and socialization, and how can we keep individuals safe while also fostering that environment that helps these individuals who are going to develop dementia or are in that early stage of dementia, because it really is a concern, and we're going to be feeling this event of the increased dementia over the next 2-3 years. We're going to have increased costs for dementia because of it.
So keeping in mind some of those things, those, having plans in place and thinking through some of those plans, as well as looking at the impact of the pandemic, particularly as we're looking at memory care, are there strategies that senior living providers should be implementing, particularly to address financial concerns and also to position themselves for success if we're thinking another pandemic, pre-pandemic, and also post-pandemic? Brad, maybe start with you.
Sure. And so in terms of what we're facing the next 2 to 3 years, I think we should expect some increased dementia care, which is a little different discussion than what about that next event? And I don't know that it's going to be a pandemic, but there can be another event. I mean, hopefully we don't have to live through all society shutting down again, but there can be another event. I think we need to make sure we're stress testing our projections. Whether you're doing a financial analysis, you're doing a bond underwriting, whether you're doing an actuarial analysis, you need to stress test that. What happens if your occupancy drops 5% or 10% over a very short period of time, and it's going to take 2-3 years to recover that? It's a realistic projection that can occur, and I think a lot of people are living through that right now, and really should have that stress test within your financial planning.
Yeah, I would echo that, Brad. I think that stress testing, and maybe saying it a little differently, developing really comprehensive financial models to look at different situations. And I've found in working with a few clients through this, in really challenging management about what is really critical to the operation at different points of time when something like this occurs. Obviously, there's been a lot of losses being incurred operationally, and not reacting quickly enough, and really identifying what is necessarily those critical parts of the operation that need to stay in place, versus some things that could be laid off. But so I think the comprehensive financial modeling for these different situations, as you said, really stress testing is really needed to be developed in the strategies.
Well, thank you both so much. Our time is coming to an end today. But before we conclude, I wanted to just ask you both, is there one tip or resource that you would recommend to senior living providers who are looking to build their pandemic playbooks?
The one thing I would encourage you to do is to maintain flexibility with your contracts. Imagine a world where whatever you're selling today is no longer marketable. And if you have a type A contract, what if that type A is no longer marketable? Can you pivot quickly to another contract type? What would you do? So have that flexibility. Give thought to that now, so that in the midst of whatever event is occurring, are you ready to pivot to another model if that's necessary? The other thing I would encourage is inventory management. What we've seen is that the PPE and the supplies for testing, so many people were doing inventory sort of on an as-needed basis, and they were just getting it in constantly, and there was no inventory there. And there may be a need to increase that inventory. I know some communities have added inventory management as a job, so that it's that's a larger necessity now than what people thought 2-3 years ago.
I would add, in addition to that, being able to change their service offering on the physical side. I think that we've obviously learned that there's going to need to be a lot of changes to the facilities and systems of facilities, particularly in healthcare, food service, HVA systems, and requires a lot of technical expertise And trying to do it yourself, I think, would be difficult. So don't be afraid to seek those technical resources to better position yourself and change your facility. There's no question that almost all the facilities need some type of modification. And we're involved in a number of projects right now that are in development or construction, and having to go back and relook at some of the things that we're doing in those spaces. And so that those physical changes are going to be really important in making sure that you should have the right technical expertise to address them. And technology too, by the way, is another area that's going to be needed to change and requires maybe some different resources.
Well, thank you, Alan and Brad. It's given us a lot to think about today, and a couple of things that action items that organizations can follow up on. So thanks for sharing of your time and your expertise with us today. This will conclude our special edition podcast.